You guys another technique that could be potentially used for adding elements to an environment without having to worry about deep-etching or cutting them out. And I'll show you some of this when we're using videos as well. But in this case, I've got a little sort of a warning sign here. It's black and white, but it could also be color. And this is a technique where it's not going to work each time. It's going to depend on your background color and also the dark and light areas of your image. And in this case, I've got the warning sign here. You know, have already rasterized this, or if you copy and paste from an internet image, it will automatically be rasterized anyway. And rather than using a wand or a quick selection tool or any other technique to try and get rid of the white background or vice versa, let's have a look at a few techniques that might actually work elsewise. So this is right at the top above everything, and this is through blend modes. And blend modes, sort of an update that Photoshop's got now, is you can actually just hover over the stuff. You used to have to manually click through it. But as I go down, if I go to darken and multiply, what you'll start seeing is darken and multiply are going to allow only the dark areas to show, and it's going to hide things like white areas. So in this case, if we got a white area, I can switch to multiply, and for most of this is going to do a pretty good job of cutting out that dark area. So particularly if your background is is already dark, then that's going to it's going to allow it. So it needs a tooth for that to work. So you can see I can start moving that around without having to justify that. Now, if instead of it being white, it had a bit more grayscale or anything other color than that, then that is going to have a slight tinge to it. So it's not going to be perfect, but it might work on a dark area. The next one is if we switch this around to things like lighten, screen, color dodge, you can start seeing that this is actually going to have the opposite effect. So if I drag this up, you can see this is now hiding out the dark areas. So rather than hiding the light areas, it's going to hide the dark areas, and I could potentially move that around. But this is with a black and white image. If this had let's grab where's my tower option again. Let's grab this tower and let's do the same sort of thing with that, and let's drag this to the top. And if I was to change this to multiply, you can see that the lighter areas are being hidden a little bit more than the darker areas. So that's essentially what's going on there. And if I switch this over to the lighten areas, you can see the darker areas are now being hidden. So this can be really useful for just doing particular cutouts for things like text and posters and things that you need to integrate. So if you're adding graffiti to this, that could be quite a useful technique for doing that. So let's bring this one back to multiply, and I'm going to place this maybe on the road or on this wall here. So I'm just going to transform that. Let's scale it, and now what I'm going to do is just it's not at the right perspective, so let's get it to fit the perspective. So right click, distort, and that's going to allow me to actually start moving that to try and fit the perspective of my image, like so. Cool. Still not happy with it, so transform, right click, distort, and get it a little bit closer to that. Now there is a couple of tricks I want to show you. If you go to the effects button, you can do things like color overlay, and I can set this to, let's say we change this to red. Now what this is going to do, this is actually going to get red to this entire color. So what I'm going to need to do is change the blend mode of this to something like screen or lighten as well, and that will hopefully allow me to see the color of that through. But you've got to be careful that any areas that aren't pure white or anything are going to start seeping through. So it's definitely not perfect for that, but there are options for that to happen, and it's worth playing around with, because sometimes rather than cutting stuff out, if it works, change the blend mode, and if the background works with it, then you can easily drop a few things in there. So worth checking out.